Welcome to Scene, where the art world meets the real world. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with emerging and established artists to offer a genuine glimpse into their lives and minds, all in an authentic and totally straightforward manner. I'm Carrie Scott, your host. And with 2 decades of experience as a curator and art historian, I firmly believe in the transformative power of art, if it's seen. So today's guest on the Have You Seen podcast is Laurie Frick, an artist who I think makes portraits, but they're not like the kind that you think at all. There's no faces, for instance. We can start there. But her work turns kind of everyday behavior into abstraction, using paintings and patterns to explore how we live rather than how we look. And we're going to talk about all that in depth. But what I want to make super clear here is that despite the lack of a human anchor, as in a human face or a human body, these are tactile human paintings made slowly by hand, considering data. And long before AI was ever a buzzword, Laurie was digging into this stuff and making it visual. She is a pioneer of this kind of work, as far as I'm concerned, and I am thrilled to be able to ask her all the questions today. So welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. That was so great. It makes me sound like a warm human being as opposed to this cold, prickly data thing.
Well, you are, right? And I
I
think
know,
that's where we should start, right? Is
I know.
how did you even end up like you to me feel like a sort of the anti-data person, and yet you took all this data and you've transcribed it into rhythms and visual energy. And how on earth did this happen?
Well, I went to school as an engineer, and I'm fastidiously tidy. I mean, the house is clean.
Like OCD tidy?
Almost, yeah, yeah, and I think it's because my mother was a hoarder.
Uh,
I mean, like, for real,
mm,
and this is, I think, a kind of rebellion. How do you organize the world and organize everything? So, I mean, I'm unusual in that, well, I've been an artist for 20 years. I was in high tech for 20 years. And, when you start being an artist, it's like, what do you make? And what do you have to say? And what about the world is interesting to you? And I've had this thought when people say, what does an artist do? And I think you take the world that you care about and you try to explain it to others. And I just thought I got started in the early aughts. And I thought this was a moment when we had gone from being completely mysterious as humans to being completely tracked. And a lot of it started when people got phones and they started to realize that Apple kept track of their location and kind of freaked out. And I started to look at all that data and thought, oh no, this is just the beginning. And I started to measure all kinds of things about myself, how I slept. I measured my sleep with this crazy sleep device around my head for 3 years. And because it was kind of weird, I got one for my husband. So we both did it, oh, we're in this together. And I just had because I worked in technology and I ran this product group that worked on completely new consumer products. I liked the future and I looked at the future and thought about the future. And I could see that we were going to go from mysterious to completely known. And I was testing it out on myself by getting all these funny little sensors, things that you could buy on Kickstarter. I had one of the very first watches way, way back. You could track your heart rate and see through the day exactly what you were doing. And as people were responding to the phone, they, they kinda hated it. They they really felt their privacy was invaded, and there was and there the the truth is there was a big backlash, and it's only gotten worse. People hate it even more.
Did you? Was it born out of a, like, "Ooh, I don't know that I like this," or were you like the woman on Kickstarter being like, "This is kinda cool, I'm gonna buy the techie thing and strap it around my head?"
I really loved it. I even made an app on an iPhone. I mean, I got somebody to help me that was, Frick Bits, and it took your location data and turned it into art, and I did a Kickstarter for it and raised went viral. I got thousands. I made s it was because the slogan was, "Take back your data and turn it into art," and it resonated.
What happened to that app?
Well, it's expensive to keep them running.
Mm.
You actually pay for Mapbox views. So I ran it for 3 years, and I felt, it's an art installation. I mean, it was expensive to run it. People think apps are free, and there was no advertising on it. It was beautiful. If you actually somebody went and looked at frickbits.com, I've left the site up and you can see it. And I put all the code, I think it would run today, um, on GitHub for free. Go download it. If you're a developer, go grab it. You could probably vibe code it right now. Seriously.
Why were you interested in making that data visual, right? Like, I don't like data, I don't like stats. I do when they're easy to digest visually, right? But
Well,
numbers kind of mean nothing to me. What and it's unusual, right? Like, there's a reason that the data science guys are data science guys, and, like, the art people are the art people, like, there's a real division there. Not to draw too many cliched, analogies here, but, like, how did you start bridging the gap between the 2?
you're not alone. Most people, I mean, human beings, our brains, um, can kind of calculate 1, 2, 3, and many. And that's why, you hear this $1 billion, $1 trillion. It doesn't make any difference. It's just a big amount, and people can't fathom numbers. And most people, like about a third of the population, has any sense of numbers and math at all. And a third of the people, numbers mean absolutely nothing to them.
That would be
I,
me.
I, um, I when I first started looking at this, there's an actual reason why I went down this path, is that I see something very clearly in the future, and I am trying to help people anticipate and see what's coming.
Mm.
And I even gone so far as I write all about this, I put it in my blog, and the reason I do it is I wanna date stamp it because I see the future and I get a chance to document it. And I think the future is that all this data that's tracked about you that's so hideous and it's obnoxious, and it's like, "What?" And it's not just on your phone, it's like, every time you drive under a traffic light, I mean, they are taking photos of you and your credit card. And, every time you get on the subway, it's everywhere. It's everything is keeping track of you. I mean, Palantir has, monetized surveillance. And I think the thing that's in the future is I think there's a chance for us to take back our data for real. I think that the absolute actionable, rebellious thing is to own your own data. Right now, we have no rights because they track us and we're these helpless, we have no control, but we also have no actual rights. I mean, there's no legislation anywhere in the world that really, really helps us. So the thing I see about the future is we get to take back our data and turn it into art. the ability to see ourselves, to understand ourselves, to get this moment of insight. I mean, we think we know ourselves, but it's really true. It's very hard. I mean, this is why your friends will tell you something about yourself and you're shocked. No, that's not who I am. And the truth is, it's seeing yourself from the inside and seeing yourself externally is, I think, a real moment of calm and reflection and mindfulness and a sense of well being. And so I try to use that data and try to come up with ways that those patterns will be ways that we can read our patterns and see a sense of ourself through art. And it's almost like some of the things you talk about, this art will be like an emotional nutrition for us. And and I think one of the things that's the most horrible today will turn into something that's the most beautiful. I am trying very hard to help people see this. I think the other thing that I've done, I know you've got a question, is I went pretty far down this path to try to get Google executives and Microsoft executives and to get people in the tech world that have control of this to see this. I mean, I've actually gone and talked to them for real.
And what they say.
You what? What?
What did they say?
You know what I actually found out is they have worse problems right now. I mean, I really talked to them like for real, and there were two responses. One response was if people could really see what we know about them, they would completely freak out. I wanna say it more strongly than that, like, they would fucking freak out. And some of them were, like, really it's like, "Huh." I said and I even explained, "This is a way to get some kind of relationship with the people that use your products that would that might, help them like you." Right? Some kind of interaction that's a positive. But I started to see, um even the senior VPs at Google have, like, key objectives, key quarterly objectives, and they talked about what they had to do that quarter and what was in their, you know, "Here's my objectives for this." They acted like employees. Like, Here's the problems that I've gotta go solve this quarter, and this isn't on it. This isn't part of that." It doesn't mean they won't get to it, but I kept giving talks and TED Talks, and I talked at South by Southwest, and I went to Stanford and gave talks and started to show them, and people were actually really interested. I gave talks that went through like, Microsoft has this, company-wide broadcast where people don't even leave the engineers don't even leave their desks. Google has the same thing. I did that one. How do you, record yourself so that everybody in these companies can see what you have to say and they blast, you know? So it's not like I haven't tried to coerce them. Um, I I think it will happen. It's gonna not be right away, but in the meantime, I think we can take solace in the idea that our data is a sense of who we are.
But so, do you kind of this is a crazy parallel, so you're just gonna have to live with me for a second. Uh, do you see this as in the way that when, like, a camera was invented and people were showing, uh can you imagine those moments of, like, eh, just seeing a photograph of yourself for the first time, how mind-blowing that must have been? Um, right. So, that this do you see this as a, like that your project is a kinda technological advancement of that our behavior, the sum of all our parts, like, all the things we do in the day are actually a truer picture of us than what everyone sees when we're up on the screen right now.
It's it it's almost like a, it's like a view into yourself. It's more than the external you. It's the whole you. And yes, I think it's interesting if you think back to that time. I don't know if this is folklore, if it was real, but there was some view that Native Americans thought photographs would steal their soul, that it was taking something from them.
Yeah, I think that that has been thrown out a couple times, but that communities did feel that way, but it wasn't an entirely Native American thing, but you can get why, right? I mean, it must have been just a crazy time, but it makes me feel that some of what you're doing is wrapped up in that. Um, but I wanna get away from the data as well, because the thing that's shocking about your work or, um, kind of seductive, actually, I'm gonna use that word, not shocking, seductive, is that they're good looking, right? And they're definitely they sit inside, okay, you're taking data and you're making stuff, artworks from that data, but you're making them visually really interesting, and they sit inside a bigger conversation or an art historical aesthetic and
That's right.
language. So how what I wanna track is how did you go from ones and twos or data, right? Like, I don't wear my watch anymore, but I used to look at my watch and be like, "I don't even know what this means. Like, is this telling me anything? I'm not learning from this." And you went from that to, "I'm gonna make it pretty, and I'm gonna show you patterns and beats and rhythms." How how'd you get there?
Well, I think people are I mean, I did a bunch of, okay, it just helps. I'm a smart person, and I went insanely down a rabbit hole into neuroscience and how does the brain work, and we as humans are pattern recognition machines. We understand our brains read pattern, and it makes more sense to us, and I thought there would be a language of pattern that people could see and understand. And I think as we get I've got one more little data thing which to think about is that it's not just behavioral, but we're really on the moment of understanding our specific like all the health metrics about us. If you read all these things from CES about toilets that measure your urine, and it's this little device. You don't have to have a whole new toilet. You just drop this little thing in, and it can keep track of. Right, you understand. It's like getting constant lab tests, but the abilities to start to anticipate because people think that a lot of things about your health are kind of a mystery, and they're not. But the ability to start to see inside of you. So, I just thought that we could start to read our lab tests and read like it's a sense of how our moods change from day to day. You can grab your micro expressions and start to understand how do you feel. And I think there's this kind of affirmation when I don't know if how you're feeling is reflected back to you and you go, yes, somebody gets it. And so the patterns came out of this idea, which I'll explain, is that I didn't want this data and these patterns that come back to you to just be, you know, pixels on glass. I didn't want it to be just, something you see on your phone, but I wanted it to be physical and handmade and to feel human and have that organic warmth. And I started looking at material science. And this has been going on for a while, is can you send a digital signal and at the other end produce something physical? Can you grow something or produce, right? And it turns out there's a lot of material science around fungal products, mushroomy things, fungal things to grow. And there's a lot of work to use fungal products instead of cutting down trees for building. and there's this bacterial cellulose that they're starting to make clothes out of that looks like fabric. And I went to a DNA lab in Cambridge, where MIT is, and, um, they they were gonna swap me. I was gonna do a big lobby installation for them, and they would, in fact, help build DNA that you can, produce in different colors, make like, grow things. I know, I know. Um, but I became convinced this, the idea that in the future, that art doesn't have to be something fancy in a museum. It doesn't have to be rarefied objects, that you get to live with art, and art can surround you in the spaces that you live, and that art can be based on a sense of you, and it will grow and repeat, and you can recycle it, and starts to be something that is 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 like a portraiture. It's a sense of self, it's a sense of who you are, but art can be meaningful, not just decorative. It can tell you something about who you know, how you feel today, and that art can grow and literally look like, um, something that's handmade. And so I had always talked about, that the artist would work the algorithms and sort of define what they would look like, and then the algorithm would produce this art. And then, lo and behold, in the last 2, 3 years, algorithmic art is real. And where a lot of others look at it as something that's horrifying, I look at it as, "Oh my god, the future's coming." And that's part of this whole idea that the data about you can turn into art in the walls, in the spaces that you live, and it can tell you something about yourself, and it's beautiful, and you have control over it. You buy it?
Mm. Okay, but anyone that's listening to this podcast up till now, uh, is probably picturing, um,
Black
artwork on a
black
screen.
with these bright little squares or something. No, that's not what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it, like, most definitely isn't what it is. So, I want you to describe your work, or indeed, like, I can't call you a painter, but you're a painter. I can't call you a sculptor, but your work is so 3D that actually even the wall panel pieces, right? I have to call them wall panel pieces. I can't call them paintings because they're so, significant in their structure. Like, what kind of an artist are you actually?
Well, I like to work
Me.
the bumpy walls is what I call it. But I work in, um, materials that I think look like something that you would want to live with on your walls. I've cut up paper, I've cut up leather, I've strung together, breakfast cereal. I've done things with, of glass where you sandblast it and it looks like ceramics. It's sort of matte finish glass. And I've started making paintings this last year. And, recently I'm working in felt, wool felt,
Which are amazing.
because if wool felt looks like something fuzzy that could grow. And if they're all cut up in the I
I
mean,
feel like you're gonna
color is important. Yeah.
massively color is important to you, right? They are the opposite of those sort of black void, uh, spinny screensaver, like,
No. I
artwork.
want the color I'm sorry, to feel like a time of day.
Mm, yeah. It means, though, that you, and I think you're fine with this, but I'm gonna ask you if you are. You fall in between 2 things. You're making work that has a distinctly sort of now, right, tech-based, uh agenda, portrait, something, right? We started with portraits, but aesthetically, your sensibility lives somewhere else, and is really, the glass works. You're That's pioneering a process that no one else is really doing yet. Does it bug you that there's not a kind of home for you yet?
I haven't even thought about that. I mean, I make work and people really like it. I mean, this isn't a big secret. I sell a lot of work. I mean, I everything I make goes. I don't everything goes. Um, I think I will I mean, I went to art school. I mean, I really studied for years and years, and um, the the touchstone for me, what I think the magic moment is medieval Sienese art, and I am an expert in medieval Sienese art, and I go there to Siena all the time because there were things that those workshops understood about time and memory, and they have a musicality and a warmth to them, different than the Florentine. I think Sienese art before the plague, you know, like Ambrogio Lorenzetti is my hero.
So niche.
So, does that help? I mean, I'm a you unlike many, many people, you have a curatorial background and you know art. That's the thing I love about you. And I have a I understand what's come before.
Yeah. I'm literally in my head trying to think back to those, uh, the foundation classes or the survey classes I did, and I'm like, "Can I actually think of a single Sienese artist right now?" That's so niche, it's so good.
Duccio,
Duccio.
Duccio,
God damn it, of course.
the maestro, Duccio.
Of course. Um, and still, right? I mean, God, it does make sense. It's all about portraits for you, isn't it? Since the beginning.
The Madonnas. I love those. When I walk in a museum, I make a beeline to the medieval section.
Hmm. I love that. I was explaining to my children what a pietà was because we were walking around the Prado. Um, and it was so fun to flex that muscle and be like, "I know a lot about this very strange thing."
Well, and always and usually that part of the museum is empty.
Mm, always. Exactly. Listen, I am conscious of time, and I have one question that I wanna get to, which feels like a cop out, but I promise you it isn't. Um, what's the one thing you wish people asked you? Not just me, not just now when we're in this strange podcast world and environment, but what's the one thing you wish people asked you about your work that no one does?
They actually never ask me about this future question. I just say it all the time, and they don't wanna talk about the future. If people would talk okay, for a year, I um, had this little project, and everybody I saw, I asked them if they thought about the future, and just stopped and listened, and people don't.
What do you mean the future? Like, if they have a
What's
five
my life gonna be like?
Hmm.
Like, what's my life like? How will things change for me? Uh, how how will my existence and my place in the world shift? What will be different? What will be new? Is there something I could get excited about? Just to live and think about the future. And what I really found is that people didn't, particularly artists. And part of it, what I realized is that if people are struggling financially, they don't think about the future at all. So if people see me and say, Lori wants to talk about the future, she wants to talk about her art in the future, that's it.
Hmm. I mean, the future is a scary place
Mhm.
because we don't know it, right?
And right now it looks particularly bad. No, I get it.
Tell me about it.
It's really, I think it's really unsettling. It's, and it's worse than that for
It
many people.
it is. It is. I love it. It's funny. I I don't know that I contemplate, like I often think of my grandmother who, by the time she died, we had cell phones, not iPhones, but cell phones. And she was born when there was no phone in her house, right? Uh,
She was probably born before airplanes.
well, properly, yeah. And then I lived in America when she was here, so it was like what she watched happen in her life. And I was just talking about this yesterday quite openly that like it's only been sort of 20 years of iPhones, and like maybe just maybe are we in a place where we can look at them critically and say, hang on a second, like this is not, we have not reinvented the wheel. Like we don't need to be quite so attached to them. Um, but I seldom think about like what technological advances will come my way. But I do think a lot about how my behavior will affect my own future. And this is where I do think your work, that's where it gets, where the divide between the data and the emotion of looking at something meet, right? So that
That's right.
I start to think about, oh, right, well, those choices built up with blue in the bottom corner of a canvas in Laurie's work or with red in the top. Um, and I hadn't thought about that much before I saw your work. And I think that's a real gift of what you're doing. I didn't say that very well, but I hope I got my point across.
Thank you. That's really lovely. Thank you. It was so fun to talk to you.
So fun, always. I wish you lived closer. Come to England. Nice.
The Bayeux Tapestry is gonna be at the British Museum. I'm coming.
Great. It's a date. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Scene Podcast. If you liked what you heard, I'd love it if you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to connect with us between episodes, follow us on Instagram at WatchSceneArt. I'm Carrie Scott, and I'll see you next time. Get it?